the leadership roles in this very important unit. And with the great news of the recapture of convicted human trafficker Anthony Smith, it's a great day for law enforcement in Trinidad and Tobago. So join us this Sunday from 10 a.m. Listen live on I-95.5 FM or watch live on the Eye on Dependency Facebook page or YouTube channel. Eye on Dependency. We don't just share stories, we change lives.
Since March this year, the sign for my office collapsed, and I have no sign for my office.
You were in government then? Yeah. When you were in government?
It doesn't matter. It was reported to the parliament.
Ask yourself.
I didn't have a choice. I had to do this one. If you survive 2010 to 2015, this one dedicated to you.
Eye on Dependency with Garth and Natasha.
Reality radio at its best, where every life is a biography.
Sundays at 10 a.m. and exclusively on I-95.5 FM.
And streamed live on the Eye on Dependency Facebook page and YouTube channel.
Good morning, Trinidad and Tobago, and welcome to Eye on Dependency, right here on I-95.5 FM, live on the Eye on Dependency Facebook page, YouTube channel, and we are also live on Instagram, National Security Instagram. And thank you so much for being with us this morning. Natasha will join us shortly. Had to return to base to pick up some equipment, so she'll be back shortly with us, but in the meantime, we are in studio here and very happy to be so with the director, the new director and deputy director of the Counter-Trafficking Unit, Ministry of National Security. It's indeed a pleasure to have them here with us today and taking into consideration that, we had some good news this past week with the recapture of Mr. Anthony Smith, and later on we'll delve into that. But this morning we're here to welcome and, of course, ask you to give your blessings to the new, as we said in the report, the new bosses of the Counter-Trafficking Unit. And, they're ready. I started working already, as a matter of fact. So, and we also have Ms. Annalise here in studio with us from the Communications Unit. As I bid welcome to Director and Deputy Director. Good morning, folks.
Good morning, God.
Good morning, God.
Thanks for having us. And good morning to your listeners and viewers. So we are really happy to be here.
Yes, we are really happy. We've been anticipating this for a very long time. And there's a lot of firsts going to happen here today. Because being, where they started, and so we have the first male director of the Counter-Trafficking Unit, Mr. Allan Meiguel, is in studio with us, and a lot of you out there familiar with the name Allan Meiguel. If not, let me give you a brief synopsis of Mr. Meiguel's journey. So Mr. Meiguel is an attorney at law, comes with a wealth of experience, having served in multiple roles within national security arena, both locally and internationally. As the new director, Mr. Meiguel aims to strategically align the work of the Counter-Trafficking Unit with the goals of reducing incidents of trafficking in persons in Trinidad and Tobago through the improvement of the CTU's administrative capacity, implementing case management systems, as well as building and maintaining closer ties with all stakeholders. Mr. Meiguel is passionate about leadership and describes his style as transformative, altruistic, and service-oriented. He also holds a Master's of Business Administration degree, majoring in leadership, and is also an avid cyclist, and a strong open water swimmer. Well. well.
The metaphors in that, right?
Yeah, I mean, on land and sea, man could come from anywhere. And so, once again, sir, welcome.
Thank you. Thanks again, God.
And listeners and viewers, you're all familiar with this person, the deputy director. Now, I know when it happened, a lot of you said you weren't surprised because, remember, Miss Dane-Marie Marshall. Dane-Marie Marshall is a very famous person in Trinidad and Tobago as well. Miss Dane-Marie Marshall was the person who laid the charge on Mr. Anthony Smith. And I'm sure we'll hear from how happy things have turned, the turn of events today. But for those of you who didn't know and didn't hear when Miss Marshall was here before, Miss Marshall, having acquired extensive experience in the field of criminal investigations, inclusive of human trafficking and forensic investigations, from a diverse array of national security agencies such as the U.S. State Department, the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, the Canadian Police College, and the Ministry of Public Safety of the People's Republic of China. Through her service of 17 years with the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service, Ms. Marshall joins the counter-trafficking unit aimed on placing that microscope focus on victim care assistance. Ms. Marshall is the holder of a Master of Business Administration degree, a Master of International Commercial and Business Law degree focused on digital law and cybersecurity, and a certificate in higher education in law from the University of London. Folks, there you have it. The Deputy Director and the Director of the new bosses of the Counter-Trafficking Unit of Trinidad and Tobago. So we get you settled in, get them settled in. Chopman, let's go for a quick break. And when we return, we'll start the conversation. Remember, we'll take in your questions too via the various social media platforms, Instagram, especially on the National Security Instagram page. I'm saying that right, page, right? Right. I know the lingo changes from time to time. So it's IG National Security TT. That's the Instagram handle. Right. So, and we're taking questions live there because, let me just leave this with you before the break, right? How many of you, now that it's out in the open, how many of you would have known the perpetrator or perpetrators who have been arrested and charged by police officers and the teams? In hindsight, how many of you say, well, wow, I didn't know this person was in that. That's right under my nose. How did I miss that? How many of you have said that to yourself in the past? Well, it has happened. We know that. All right? So let's take a quick break. And when we return, we will speak to Mr. Allan Meiguel and Ms. Dane-Marie Marshall. You're listening to Dependency. We'll be back.
Hey, Cappy, talk to you now, boy. Got a small work for you to do. Make a quick 10 G's. What you gonna do for me?
10 G's? What's that how I do this, boy?
What you doing? Taking your boat, run up the islands, pick up some people and then bring them back here for me. That's all you have to do.
That's sounding like human trafficking, boy. That's a serious crime. I can't make that.
Trafficking in human beings is a serious violation of a person's human rights. It violates a person's right to freedom of movement, freedom of choice, freedom of speech, and freedom of identity. It is a heinous crime which affects local, regional, and international peace and security. A victim of human trafficking is subjected to many types of abuse. The crime destroys a person's dignity and self-worth. Victims often feel hopeless, are suicidal, and are stigmatized in their communities. Child victims are deprived of their rights to education, play, and social interactions. They're essentially robbed of their childhood, and that can never be regained once those years have passed. If we do little or nothing to fight against human trafficking in our country, we can face economic sanctions from international agencies and partners. Our country will be losing money. Doing little or nothing to fight against human trafficking will tarnish our country's international image and, most of all, the value we place on human life. Human trafficking is no respecter of persons. Anyone can be a victim. So let us all strive to safeguard human life and dignity in Trinidad and Tobago.
We are the Counter-Trafficking Unit of the Ministry of National Security, Trinidad and Tobago, safeguarding human life.
Hey, you come in. Long time I see you. This station complete. Ready for children party. Mommy! Jay, you can't go nowhere with these children. And you know you can't depend on Kevin neither Stephen to see about them. Yeah, total waste. So I supposed to stay home whole time? Jada is 12. She could see about them. You just leave Jada to see about Kia and Kayla. I thought it's your mother or your sister. Who? Them always busy. Jada could handle that. She cooking and cleaning a long time. And the next two better know what time it is. It's only me, you know. I will talk to my mother. She just home these days. She will make sure the children okay. Alright. Let me see the moves for later.
Before you ramage, make sure the children okay. Call 996 to report all child abuse now. A message from the Children's Authority of Trinidad and Tobago.
Eye on Dependency with Garth and Natasha.
Reality radio, at its best, where every life is a biography.
Sundays at 10 a.m. and exclusively on 95.5 FM.
And streamed live on the Eye on Dependency Facebook page and YouTube channel.
Eye on Dependency with Garth and Natasha.
Reality radio, at its best, where every life is a biography.
Sundays at 10 a.m. and exclusively on 95.5 FM.
All right, thank you for staying with us. Oh, and let's get right into it this morning. Remember, we'll be taking your questions shortly, and we wanted to at least help us welcome, because it's the first time they'll be doing this publicly in their respective roles as director and deputy director of the Counter-Trafficking Unit. So, Mr. Meiguel, let's start with you as director. What made you decide to pursue this path, seeing that you had your journey, of public service, and this to me is the ultimate in your journey here, because you have adopted a very serious role here and a very important unit.
God, I think that my journey has brought me to the Counter-Trafficking Unit.
Okay.
So, I mean, I have a history of participation in law enforcement, protecting this country since 1988. And it saw me through so many different iterations of law enforcement. On the police side, on the civilian oversight of law enforcement side, from writing policy and so on. So this part, I feel as though that I'm guided to where I am now. And I'm excited by the fact that I'm sitting in this chair as Director of Counter-Trafficking. In fact, let me put it another way. The Republic of Trinidad and Tobago's response to counter-trafficking, or trafficking in human beings.
Right. So you have settled in. And you of course, you have your plans already laid out. You want to share some of that with us?
Yeah, certainly. There's something I call the Holy Trinity. In establishing any investigative unit, if you have a cohort of dedicated men and women, a process of work, and a digital platform to place it on, I feel I can investigate anything in life. We do have those three parts. So we have our established strategic goals. It's there in the act. To tackle trafficking in human beings, to reduce the incidence of it, to prosecute, to protect, and so on. But trafficking in human beings and the response to it requires a kind of ambidexterity. So while it is you have the law enforcement aspect of it, there's also the humanistic aspect of it. because people prey on the vulnerable.
Right.
And when these vulnerable come into the sphere of the counter-trafficking unit, we have to care for them. So this is why, as the Deputy Director no doubt will tell you later, that we dealing in victim, that is a very, very seriously important aspect of the work that we do. In fact, it might just be just about as important as catching the perpetrators in there.
Right.
So that's where we are. I intend to build out a strong administrative support system, and already I must thank the administration of the Ministry of National Security for allowing me to have the staff and so on to get that job done. So that's one aspect of it. Then the next aspect is to have that dedicated investigators and investigative unit. We want them to be sharp. We want them to be reasonable. We want them to be responsive. We want them to have a measurable result in terms of the work that we do. In terms of the digital platform, I'm happy to say that we are about 65% complete with that digital platform. We are getting help from our partners abroad. And here what that digital platform will do, it will allow us to audit all our cases, input all our cases, generate reports, know everywhere there is a victim, take reports, know what sort of shelter stock that we have, so that everything will be there on a digital platform, and it will assist, it will aid, and it will take away that paperwork and that guesswork. So that's where we're at right now, and that is the basics. Yes, we have gone into a new building, and it's fit for purpose.
Right.
So we're going to have dedicated interview rooms and so on in that place. We have a victim lounge, we have a police, we have the administrative staff. So we are in a good place to really make that response, the Trinidad and Tobago's response to human trafficking, a very, very strong one.
Yes, and what you know, some citizens may ask, why is it we really focusing on this, you know, and why is it even necessary? Because it's something that we said is hidden in plain sight. So is it that the citizens really don't understand how serious this really is?
Just allow me a little bit. The Trafficking in Persons Act is an act to give effect to the United Nations Protocol to prevent, suppress, and punish trafficking in persons. So we have signed on to the protocols, and thus we have the Trafficking in Persons Act, number 14 of 2011. We have made that law. Why we have made that law? Because there is a problem in this society in terms of trafficking in human beings, whether it's for labor, whether it's to harvest human organs, whether it's for sexual exploitation. To exacerbate that situation, to make matters worse, the economic crisis in Venezuela has created a migrant population that is looking for a better life, and thus they expose themselves. They are vulnerable persons, expose themselves to people in there who would like to make an economy out of trafficking in human beings. So we ask the question, why are we dealing with it? We are dealing with it because it is part of the crime scenario in Trinidad and Tobago. Because if you're looking at stemming from trafficking in human beings, you will have the murders, you have the guns, the drugs, and so on. So it is an aspect of crime, of the whole crime scene in Trinidad and Tobago. And there are some gangs who use trafficking in persons, exploitation of vulnerable persons as an economy for the gangs. So this is where we are. This is why it is so important.
And you mentioned and rightly so, and very important, the migrant population. And because of that, where we have to embrace some of our folks from Venezuela, a lot of people have been taking advantage of some of them. We know that. And, you know, how do you impress upon the citizenry that we'll be found complicit if we are deemed to be taking advantage of these folks?
Well, these people, when they come over here looking for opportunities, and person will take advantage of that. They bring them from sometimes from Venezuela through Facebook ads and so on, giving them the promise of a better life.
Yes.
And as soon as they set foot in Trinidad, they bundle in a van and shows up somewhere, and they're forced into different activities, yes?
Yes.
Mainly sexual trafficking. So we have an obligation as a responsible, law-abiding country to ensure that we protect the vulnerable persons and we tackle crime. Yeah? So that is where we are in terms of our approach and our response to trafficking in persons, and especially with emphasis on the Venezuelan migrant.
If you're just joining us, you're listening to Dependency, and we have in studio with us the new director and deputy director of our Counter Trafficking Unit, Ministry of National Security, and we introducing them to you for the first time. So let's give a warm Dependency welcome to them and give them their blessings, because they have a lot of work ahead of them to, get Trinidad and Tobago where we're supposed to be on that tips report. And you can, of course, we are live on Facebook, our Dependency Facebook and YouTube channel, and you can also find us on National Security TT Instagram. That's the handle for the National Security Instagram page. So we have them in studio here, and we are speaking to what we've been trying to keep alive and on the front burner in Trinidad and Tobago, the issue of human trafficking. Now, Gary, get your applause button standing by, please. Thank you. Because we have something to celebrate. And, Deputy, if you allow me, I'll ask Ms. Marshall to speak with us for a minute. Here now, Ms. Marshall, Dane-Marie Marshall. Folks, remember her? Well, Dane-Marie Marshall went down in history as the police officer who laid the charge on Anthony Smith. Showman, you could put up the picture. If you can't remember the gentleman, we want to put up his picture and show you again this morning. Remember, he was charged in absentia and...
Convicted in absentia.
Convicted, in absentia. Thank you for the correction, ma'am. But he absconded. And he stayed so for a while. And then one day, our police doing their work, and he was found. Deputy Director, good morning once again and welcome.
Good morning, God. Good morning, Trinidad and Tobago.
How do you feel about this morning?
The police did their job. Police did their work, man. There was no doubt in my mind that Mr. Anthony Smith would have been brought to justice in this matter. And I would obviously take the opportunity to commend the officers of the North Central Division Intelligence Unit, headed by Inspector Green, Dardine, and Sergeant Pamphil, and the likes of those gentlemen.
If you don't mind, ma'am, can I...
You have the list of names.
Yes, let me...
Should have known.
Yes. Let me just let folks, like I said, and he has a beard. When he found him, he has a beard now. Okay. Thought that would have got him, home free. But let me remind you who this purpose, right? Anthony Smith, a Tunapuna businessman, who was the first person to be convicted as a human trafficker in Trinidad and Tobago, was on Sunday evening captured by a team of police officers. Smith had absconded from his court trial last September and has since been on the run from law enforcement through having been convicted for several offenses between 2014 and 2015. A female apprentice, 20, of Kelly Village, who police believe was aiding and abetting the fugitive, has also been arrested in the police operation and is currently assisting a team of detectives with ongoing inquiries. Now, this happened at 6 p.m. on Friday, 11. Officers of the North Central Division Gang and Intelligence Unit, along with North Central Division Task Force and Northern Community-Oriented Policing Section, continued surveillance at a location in Kelly Village, Caroni, where a companion of Smith was observed. The officers and Northern Community-Oriented Policing Section officers subsequently moved in and captured and arrested Anthony Smith and his companion. Smith, 38, was first arrested and charged on January 5, 2016 for recruiting a child for the purpose of trafficking. 17 charges of sexual penetrating a child, 5 charges of child prostitution, and 3 charges of assault. The offenses occurred during the period December 2014 to July 2015. So this exercise was spearheaded by ACB Subero, Senior Sup Smith, Superintendent Norbert, coordinated by ASP Ramsarak, Inspector Green, and supervised by Sergeants Acton, Dardine, Pamphil, Corporals Greenwich, CPO, and Tanis. Gary? And we just want to congratulate wholeheartedly these officers for not only their diligence, because I'm sure it would have been taken up a period of time to get on to get their ducks in a row and make their move.
Definitely.
So yes, so Deputy Director, tell us about this. I guess now you sort of feel like does this feel like a weight coming off your shoulders?
I mean, it's definitely closure, for want of a better terminology. Mr. Smith is now where he's supposed to be, serving his sentence in the state prison, and for that I know Trinidad and Tobago is pleased.
Gary? Okay, it seems so, and that's a picture of him now. Like I said, he has a beard now, so he tried his best of blending in with the environment. But as you said, we are pleased, and what I noticed though is that when this happened, oh boy, the place was lit with all type of comments. And they laugh at the police, they laugh at the ministry, they laugh at this one, they laugh at that one. And everything was circulating. Now that he was caught, this was almost like a secret. Why we didn't celebrate? Why you, the members of the public, didn't share this like you did when he escaped? It's really ironic. And think about how the law enforcement officers felt when this happened. But we shared it constantly. I got this on my WhatsApp about 10 times when he escaped. But I didn't get it once. Well, I got it from the ministry. But social media was very quiet about his recapture. So we want to say to the officers, thank you. And ma'am, we thank you very much for your work.
Definitely. And it's service. This is service. And on the backdrop of what I feel there about victim care and ensuring that the victim is okay, this is justice for the victim in this matter. Complete justice. Because she did what she had to do in coming and ensuring that the prosecution process went without any issues, any obstacles. She gave her evidence in the court and was heard, and a jury and a judge made their pronouncements in this matter. Right. And now it's just closure. And as we press on to other matters, in terms of ensuring that we now engage in having more convictions in trafficking in persons.
Now let's go back a bit, right? As a female police officer, then, could you give the public an idea of how heartbreaking it is for you all to come upon a scene like this, and what are some of the attributes? Let's say somebody want to be part of it. What are some of the attributes one must have? Because this is not ordinary policing, right? This is a different kettle of fish we're talking about here. How do you separate that emotion as a mother, a female, and a police officer?
I think the director kind of alluded to the fact that operating in this realm, you must have a measure of humanity, and professionalism. It can be skewed, but you must be engaged in a way that you're able to get back to a place where you operate with a measure of professionalism. Right. I agree. Operating in the counter-trafficking unit is is a different experience. And again, the director indicated that the concepts, the focus on victim is stronger here when you work in the area of counter-trafficking, because in the bowels of the 4 Ps of trafficking in person, when we speak about prevention, the prevention is about preventing victims.
Right.
When we speak about prosecution, we need to have our victims in a place where they are ready, equipped, and able to assist in prosecutions, right? And of course, when we speak about protection, we speak about protecting our victims. So we understand the importance of the whole concept of victim and victim care in this process. And it takes somebody who is able to really engage in not operating in blurred lines, but understanding how to separate issues. And of course, operating with a measure of compassion and humanity to operate in the counter-trafficking unit.
Director, you want to add to that?
Well, I think the Deputy Director covered it well, but it really requires you to, as in most law enforcement areas, quite often the issues that you deal with are issues that you can't divorce yourself from.
Yeah.
Because you are a father and you see a young girl who's being trafficked for sex. You can't divorce yourself from that, you know. What you require, the professionalism that the Deputy Director spoke about, is really to try to separate the two, you know. Right? And it requires that personal discipline sometimes to separate the two. Otherwise, you carry that burden with you all over, you know. This is why I cycle and I swim every chance I get, you know, as my form of meditation, you know, and prayers and so on, yeah?
Yes.
Because sometimes, you know, you have to have that work-life balance. At least you be drawn in to, you know, that whole ugly, evil enterprise that you're confronted with every single day. Yeah. And I could appreciate officers from the homicide division picking up bodies every single day. Yes. That can have an impact. So we are not under any illusion that we are getting into any area of law enforcement that is any different from anywhere else. Yeah? We see victims, we see what they go through, we deal with the Venezuelan embassy, and we have good rapport with them. And sometimes the story that these people and they tell, God, it could be heart-wrenching. Yes? So sometimes you take it with you, but you have to know that just before you enter your home, you have to defrock, so to speak.
That's right.
Yes?
Right.
Secondary trauma is a real issue. Whilst operating there as an authorized officer, we really looked at what secondary trauma is as an investigator. And as the cloaking or the defrocking is important, especially before entering your home, because you don't want to move into an environment where you overprotective. Operating there, I'm a mother of one daughter, and I will tell you, obviously, the way I would operate with her would be different to the average mother with a teenager. I'll tell you. She will tell you that too. Right? Because of my experiences. But I needed to, obviously, at times, ease off a little bit, because there is that perception. And the director says, your father, you're a mother, you have to divorce it, but how do you?
This is what I'm about to ask. How do you divorce yourself? Because I know it will give you an appreciation for your family when you get home after dealing with victims. Because how are you as a father going home to your daughter afterwards, after you just spoke to a 14-year-old who was abused by men?
Fatigue, they call it.
Yeah, and God, you're right, you know. There's no true divorce, you know. Because in the back of your mind, in the most quiet moments, yes, you will think about them. And then in counter-trafficking and trafficking in persons, you never can tell. You can be home in your bed and a call comes, oh, we have 3 victims. So there's no real divorce, yes?
Yeah.
I suppose you could compartmentalize it in your consciousness, but really and truly, you can't really divorce from it, especially when you look in the eyes of a victim and they tell you that story. It changes you forever.
That's right.
Yes, and we will have one or two, during the course of the year, we will have 1 or 2 victims in studio or recorded so that you can hear from them yourself. And while you're listening, put your daughter or son in that position. We've been joined by Natasha. Good morning, Natasha.
Morning, Trinidad and Tobago. Morning to our esteemed guest in studio and to our listeners and viewers on Facebook, YouTube, and I-95.
And National Security's Instagram.
And National Security's IG, yes,
yes.
Of course.
So
I've been listening to the conversation. I just wanted to stick in one thing on this issue of compassion fatigue. And, of course, individuals will have their own ways of dealing with it, as you've mentioned. But I suppose I suppose it gives you a little more determination too when you look into the eyes of the victims to seek justice for them. And in relation to that, with this particular case with Anthony Smith, is there anything that you can point to? Is this like a model case in terms of how it was investigated, and the fact that we now have a conviction and we had the testimony of the survivor and all of that? Is this sort of a model that the unit might use going forward?
So, in relation to Anthony Smith's case, and what is and continues to be unique about this case is so many. You'll find that about 80% of the times there would be a raid, or there might be a report, and there might be a rescue of an individual that would bring this information.
Yes.
And the investigation will commence from that. But in this case, remember, there was a raid, yes, of a place, but a document was found.
Right.
And it brought us to a place where we had to now convince an individual who had already left a trafficking situation to bring them back in the situation for justice. So there was a measure of trust and confidence that we need to bring to that victim, to allow the police that opportunity. Well, not just the police, but the authorized officers of the counter-trafficking unit, because that's what, who investigates trafficking in persons, and as the director indicates, who has the responsibility in relation to the response of trafficking in persons in Trinidad and Tobago, and that is the counter-trafficking unit. So what would be perfect in this matter is that we had the victim on board to give the evidence.
Yeah. I know that is a difficult task in most cases.
And what was also unique in this matter is that this victim was a Trinidad and Tobago national.
Yeah.
Director, you want to say something?
No, I just accept to say that that in addition to that case itself, this was a watershed moment in terms of Trinidad and Tobago's obligation under the protocols of the United Nations and the United States Department of State assessment of our counter-trafficking response, because they placed a lot of emphasis. They placed a real highlighter on the fact that there wasn't a conviction. Right. So from that point of view, that case is a landmark case. Yes. And hopefully, based on the other work and the work that we are doing, we are trying our very best to get us off of that watch list. That is the aim, purpose, and desire of the Directorate right now. And to do that, we are going to ensure that other matters before the court are given the attention and the audit necessary to make sure we have a similar outcome. So there are some. So we are going to concentrate on that. In the meantime, we are looking at some predictive law enforcement too. Yes, let's go and look and see, turn over some rocks out there, right? Yeah. And bring some more perpetrators to justice.
Yes.
And so that we can see our response to trafficking in persons is a successful one. Yes, it is bearing fruit. And we're moving from strength to strength.
Yes.
Make that a very unattractive enterprise for the criminals.
Yeah. Yes.
Well said. Well said. Folks, if you're just joining us, we're going to go for a break. If you're just joining us, you're listening to Dependency, of course. And we are speaking with Director of the Counter-Trafficking Unit and his Deputy Director, Mr. Allan Meiguel. A lot of you out there will be familiar with Mr. Meiguel, and Dane-Marie Marshall, who's the Deputy Director of the Counter-Trafficking Unit. Now, how many of you remember Ms. Dane-Marie Marshall when she was with us on the last occasion? Well, she's now the Deputy Director of the Counter-Trafficking Unit.
And I think this is an opportunity to thank, your viewers at 995, because that day they gave me so much praises and they say, we pray for promotion.
And it was delivered.
Yeah, definitely. I was actually having that conversation with my parents. Good morning, Stephen and Deborah Marshall. And I was having that conversation and my mother said, don't forget to thank them people, because they indicated that, you can't be just a corporal or policeman. So I want to thank the listenership of the Eye on Dependency. Of
Yes.
course, it was, of course, with your praises and your good vibes, bare good vibes that this, amongst the fact that I had to interview and all the other things. But
Right.
of course, I want to thank you all for the support and the continued support of the unit moving forward.
Yes. I mean, without that goes without saying. And I mean, we want to thank you all too for continuing to believe in us too, and to help us continue to, to spread the message of all arms, especially of security, national security, especially the counter-trafficking unit of Trinidad and Tobago. And we have the applause button now, guys. Yeah, let's get some applause for these folks here, please. Yes, people, that's for our director and deputy director of the counter-trafficking unit in Trinidad and Tobago. Like I said, it's the first male director of the unit, and we really look forward to a very progressive year under their watch, under their respective watch. So we're going to take a break, and when we return, we have lots more to share with you. How many of you know if trafficking happening in your neighborhood, in your community, and you're just turning a blind eye to it? How many of you? Let's look at the couple PSAs coming up, especially with the neighbors. Tell me if this sounds familiar. You're listening to Dependency. We'll be right back.
Morning. Listen now. Has noticed something out. Them new people on about Bureau Day. Where's that? Girl, the man that he passing up and down in front of here with a set of woman.
I really noticed some woman living there, And they can't even say as much as good morning.
Well, listen now. I wonder if it's human trafficking. You think it's that?
So, how can you spot and identify perpetrators and victims of trafficking? Many victims are found living and working together in the same place and sleep in shared and inappropriate spaces. Victims work excessively long hours. They often sleep in the daytime and work long nights. They are often escorted everywhere they go and may appear to be malnourished. They may show signs of physical abuse, drug and alcohol use, and may also appear withdrawn, fearful, or intimidated. Victims who are migrants are often not in possession of their identity or immigration documents and have irregular immigration status. Perpetrators can be male or female and may appear to be managing or controlling the victims. And they may even at times appear to be the victim's best friend, boyfriend, or employer.
We are the counter-trafficking unit of the Ministry of National Security, Trinidad and Tobago, safeguarding human life.
Children are our most precious resource. We must protect them from anyone that would do them harm, place them in danger, or neglect them. You can help. Know the signs of abuse at home, within institutions, and within our communities. Contact the Children's Authority if you suspect a child's rights are being violated. We can help our children by just speaking up. To find out more, contact the Children's Authority at 996. The Children's Authority, caring, supporting, protecting.
Eye on Dependency with Garth and Natasha.
Reality radio, at its best, where every life is a biography.
Sundays at 10 a.m. and exclusively on 95.5 FM.
And streamed live on the Eye on Dependency Facebook page and YouTube channel.
Stand by. Okay, thank you for staying with us. And as usual, thank you, our loyal listeners and followers on our social media platform. As usual, good morning to Miss Archie on the YouTube channel. Thank you very much for joining us. And we are here in studio with the new director and the new deputy director of the Counter Trafficking Unit of Trinidad and Tobago, Ministry of National Security. Now, folks, you know this unit is not a stranger to you all because we have been, over the past few years, highlighting the great work of this unit. And they are here with us now as new director and deputy director to tell us of their plans going forward with this unit. Also later on, the Northern Division Task Force seem to be doing a lot of work, and we're going to show you what they discovered in the form of this date rape drug called ketamine. They did some work, and I keep saying, you know, when our police officers do good, let that go viral too now. You know, just wait for some police officer to mess up and you spread that all over the world. Let's show the world the good work of our officers too, and we have to heap praises on them, because you know the focus of this program ever since our mornings have been substance abuse and its related ills. Now, in human trafficking, substances are widely used there as well.
Definitely. On
victims. And it's God, I sometimes, I don't know. And the director, and you know, the thing about it is we have both men and women as perpetrators of this crime.
Certainly. Well, what I've found, right, is that the victim care on the criminal aspect of it, you find a lot of women involved in that. Yes? They house them, they keep them in order, they keep them calm, and so while the men organize the enterprise. Yes? They organize to move them from place to place to be exploited by other persons. So yes, from what I have seen so far, there always seem to be a network of women who is helping to perpetrate it, either by posting ads on Facebook, maybe in Venezuela, sometimes in Trinidad, inviting people to come over. Quite often, that aspect of it is done by women. Because agreed, Deputy?
Yes. And just to add to what director is indicating, and what we obviously notice is the recruitment is usually, there's a greater percentage of women recruiting of their own liking. So you will find that their recruiter would be a Venezuelan woman that they might know, or a relative or a friend's aunt, or is somebody that is very much known to them. So they are able to trust them. So they would be able to identify the vulnerability easy, because they are very aware of the individuals that they are actually recruiting. And that would, to be finding that the whole aspect of women being involved is of a high rate. And of course, as you indicated about that date rape drug, since we are sitting on the chair, I know that we have had a couple occasions where we have victims who are indicating that the situations happen and they just got up and realized. So we recognizing that is a advent that is has been introduced into the mix as we speak. But of course, inquiries in those matters are continuing. It will be sub judice, so we really can't speak loudly about it. But we're recognizing the use of substances in relation to the recruitment and possible capture and movement of women across borders. Yes.
We have to remember that trafficking in persons is an organized crime. If you think about the logistics in terms of recruiting, transporting, people arriving in Trinidad, being placed in brothels and so on, it requires a high degree of organized in the underworld in order to execute that. And it's quite often it is international, cross-border. So we on the surface, yes, we can talk about individuals who may have been trafficked and so on. But behind that, in the dark, in clandestine places, you have a network, well-oiled criminal enterprise, that is responsible for the whole issue of trafficking in Trinidad and Tobago. And so this is what we have to respond to. The counter-trafficking unit of Trinidad and Tobago we have to raise our game to such a level that we can actually root them out. Yes, because they are in fact, a criminal enterprise. Well-oiled.
Natasha, remember, we saw that ad in a newspaper, and I'm so sorry that we didn't include it in this lineup today. Did you all see this ad in this newspaper where one line, it says, wanted poor person or neglected from person? What? Yeah. Natasha,
basically targeting, I'm going to try to find it, but basically it was targeting vulnerable people, like telling them, if your family put you out, call this number, we go help you. Basically grooming via an ad. It is really horrendous.
How let's speak to our press, because
horrendous.
I don't think they realize how important their roles are too in fighting human trafficking. Now, somebody comes to me in the wanted ad section to place an ad that says, all I want is this. Poor person feel neglected by their family. Call this number. What does that mean? How do we speak to the press about this? And how do you impress upon the press that they need to be part of the fight? And this should send up a red flag. I mean, come on.
Or alternatively, how can the police intervene if they see something like that published? How would you go about following up on and trying to find this individual?
Part of the reason why we're here today is so that we can tell people. We can have an outreach. We can tell the press. We are doing that now. We tell them, be careful of the ads you put in your paper because you may be encouraging the perpetrating of facilitating, trafficking in persons. So what? Another aspect of the counter-trafficking unit.
Just Director, sorry to interrupt you, but just in the case of Anthony Smith, Sarah answered to an ad in the newspaper.
Certainly. Yes. So we have another aspect of our job is to inform the public, to sensitize the public that this evil that is lurking between us, it is hidden, and you have to be aware because the signs and the note are not always obvious. So we have to use the opportunity every chance that we get to inform the public that you see something, say something. Yeah. Yes. Something look awkward, it wouldn't hurt to come out front and tell it, because in the back end, if that person becomes a victim or that person gets hurt, then you will feel a sense of guilt. Yes. So this is.
But you think they would feel guilt though? Well, because it's about money, right? It's about making money.
Yeah.
So and I'm speaking to the person receiving the money to place the ad. They see is another dollar for the institution.
Right.
But
I'm speaking for the general member of the public, right? With no criminal disposition. But nevertheless, they may see something that looks awkward and they say, oh, that's somebody else's business.
Right.
No, that is our business. That's the country's business. The country is judged by foreigners on how we respond. So everybody has to come on board if it is we have to tackle this in a holistic fashion.
Yeah.
Yes? So we are going to ramp up our public awareness, and we have the corporate comes here with us, and we have a nicer strategy for, going forward to inform the public that, we need the help with this one. We really need your help.
Yes, public, I hope you're listening. We need your help. Because as somebody said here, they would never circulate the capture of Mr. Smith, but they were on Facebook telling people don't come to Trinidad because you don't get killed and kidnapped, and robbed. This is how you paint in your country. But what about the work of the officers who continue to try to prevent that from happening? How do you think they feel when they see that? So, Deputy, about the communities now, what are the plans with the unit to reach out to the communities?
So, we are a month yet? Yes, we are a month in office. So we have celebrated a month in office, and as the director indicated, we have plans and we have been doing a lot. Since coming in office, we engage about 3 schools. Of course, during the carnival season, it paused for a time, but we are starting in that phase because we're recognizing that our victim pool continues to be of a juvenile nature, right? And we would want to, of course, advance that measure of awareness because it is enshrined in the statute as a responsibility of the counter-trafficking unit. Yeah. And that's why we feel is the importance of coming and sitting with you and Natasha, and not just us, but other persons who would form part of our stakeholder grouping to come here on a Sunday and discuss with you exactly what they can do, what we can do to, of course, prevent situations of trafficking in persons. So, so we'll be engaging and, of course, continue the schools. We're looking at, the director indicated that we want to look at public hotels and all those different areas that would be attached to a situation where there might be some measure of exploitation. Because let me tell you this, in my experience, somebody would come to a place of work being, let's just say, one of those guest houses, and they might just be of the opinion that is a normal transaction of business. Right. So in us going out and having that conversation with them, we would be able to direct them with the little indicators, the little telltale signs that they could look for in relation to if this might just be a normal, consensual, legitimate interaction by 2 consenting adults.
Yeah. because I can see it now. I mean, even in role play, probably we could even implement that too, where
that's right.
You know, I walk in with Natasha looking well down and all kind of thing, but I doing all the business and Natasha sitting behind me,
that's
very
right,
comfortable waiting.
And you see in that level of interaction, because if two consenting adults is going to have an interaction, what is third wheel doing there? Don't like let's just not look at things and see it and just pass by it. Let us see it. There might be a reason for this man, this enforcer, being there.
Yes.
Right? And that's the kind of direction that the director and I are really looking at in relation to how we want to have the public way, because the director, in our first week together sitting down and really consulting, our aim is to just make trafficking in persons a non-issue in Trinidad and Tobago. It must be that we do the work.
Because look, one of our Facebook posters asked a question: is there anything illegal about placing such ads? Now, I with law enforcement mind.
I found it.
What it says?
It says, and I quote, "Need female companion, poor or unwanted by your family," and a number.
There's nothing illegal with that ad, but it is immoral.
Yeah.
Yes?
Right.
So by saying something, okay, if it's not illegal, then it's okay. That's wrong.
Right.
Yes, it is immoral.
Yeah.
Yes, and you must, you have a newspaper, yes, who people trust for information.
Yeah.
Yes? You have to be careful with the type of information that you give to the public, and you don't create a circumstance where children, there's a risk that children and they may be exploited. So there's a moral responsibility on persons who take money for those ads to ensure that they're not, yes?
Yeah, definitely.
And it's under the section singles.
Yes.
I mean...
No, but again,
just
if you're just joining us, you're listening to Dependency, and we have in studio the new director and deputy director of the Counter Trafficking Unit, Ministry of National Security, and they are taking us through the steps here this morning of what their tenure is expected to be like going forward. Again, folks, I keep saying, I remember Sarah answered and ad in the newspaper. So are there any, and remember, if you have any questions, we're going to be taking your questions in the next hour. So, stand by with any question you have, anything that crossed your mind, anything that you would have seen and probably, would have overlooked. For instance, director and deputy directors, people keep calling us here to tell us about what they see at certain traffic lights. Now, it happened right by Movie Town there, when you leave the avenue to go down to Peaks area. There are a couple people there with children soliciting for some cars from passers-by. And some people find it looks suspicious. Some would that fall under exploitation of a child, or you really don't know, it's just people normal begging? Is this something that probably law enforcement can look into?
Well, it would all depends on these circumstances, eh?
Right.
If that is, I think I've seen that myself. If
Right.
it's a woman there begging alms, that in itself is against the law.
Right.
Yes. But certainly, police officer who has the responsibility to protect and serve ought to do a welfare check and ensure, yes,
that's a couple questions.
Yes, certainly. And if it is that person they show indication for trafficking, yes. If there are indicators for trafficking, then certainly the Counter Trafficking Unit will be very much interested in dealing with that.
Josh?
Yeah, I was actually gonna follow up on an earlier conversation about the involvement of men versus women in different aspects of the trade. And we were asked a very interesting question. We had a meeting at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs last week, and a concern was raised about the fact that men too are victims and survivors of trafficking, and not enough emphasis is being placed, they think, on the vulnerabilities of men as well in this scenario. What is your take on
that? And Trinidad and Tobago has seen mainly two aspects of exploitation, and it's registered in terms of our records in prosecutions, right? In terms of charging individuals, and that would be sexual and labor. And I will say to you, in the aspects of labor, the percentage of men is, of course, increasingly greater. but it forms a small number. In the aspects of sexual exploitation, we have had men, I'm not going to discount it, but it was 1%.
Right.
Right? And in everything, you would always look at what would be the greater of the issues and try to see how best you could prevent situations involving the greater of the issues.
Yes.
Labor exploitation really catalysts and has really reduced significantly. We want to, of course, at this time recognize Ministry of Labor because they are Labor Inspectorate. They have been doing a fantastic job in trying to see how best they could clamp down on those exploitative situations. But, of course, those situations were not to reach levels of trafficking in persons. There was labor exploitation where money, of course, was being passed.
Yes.
But it was not meeting with what would be our government's requirement in terms of minimum wage.
Yeah.
So it wasn't that they were not being paid and whatnot. And of course, in relation to what the Act speaks to how a labor exploitation situation arises, because I could tell you one of our matters in labor exploitation, they were brought here and they were not paid. They were fed once a day. They worked long hours. But in another situation where labor would get involved, the person will go to work the normal hours of the day, but not being paid the requisite amount of money. So you see where there's the distinctions.
Yes.
But it would not be to ever think that we would not recognize male victims and do the necessary in relation to our male victims, because the counter-trafficking unit, we have male victims, and we continue to do what is necessary under the umbrella of the law in relation to our male victims, just as the women. But just the numbers are significantly smaller.
Sorry, Director, go ahead.
In addition to that, what we are doing going forward is to ensure that our interpreters in there are preferably from the culture of the victim. I say that to say this. If it is that you are going to have, let's say, a male admit that he is a victim of trafficking, sometimes it's difficult to do that to a police officer. But if it is you have somebody from the culture, let's say for example, a Venezuelan person and somebody from the Venezuelan consulate, they can pick up on the nuance and they will better be able to identify a victim rather than sitting with an interpreter who just interprets. Somebody who has some knowledge of the culture and the nuances of that culture will better serve us in identifying victims generally and male victims specifically.
No. So what you're saying in the sense that most of the males, most of them are being victims of forced labor and not being paid properly and all of that. That is where we find most of the male victims.
Yeah, in the history of the counter-trafficking unit, and you would find that was the situation in relation to our male victims, would be in a situation of labor exploitation. As I indicated, we have had a sexual exploitation mixed with a labor exploitation of a young man, and that was a 1%.
But this might be a good opportunity to remind the public as well of the criteria, so to speak, for lack of a better word, or the threshold by which you work in terms of how do you determine what is a human trafficking matter.
Director, you want to take this one?
If you're just joining us, you're listening to Dependency.
The act means any purpose, right?
Yes.
Right.
So if you're just joining us, you're listening to Dependency, and we have in studio with us the new director and deputy director of the counter-trafficking unit, Ministry of National Security. And you've missed a lot. And for those of you who didn't remember, especially our followers on YouTube, Shobani can put back up the picture for them. So that you can see the recapture. If you didn't know yet, well, he has been recaptured. And we would like that to go viral and thank the police service and the other supporting units for doing their job. Because honestly, I thought this guy was gone. Honestly, serious. A lot of people felt, people felt he wasn't coming back. We're not going to get this guy anymore. Turns out that even though he grew a beard, they still caught him. I can't praise the
And
police enough
ironically,
for
he
this.
was being harbored by a young woman again. So, the pattern remains with him.
So, and I would obviously like the director and deputy director to talk to people about doing this harboring. Not that they don't know, but just to reinforce it. So remember, you can be on live on the National Security Instagram page as well. Director?
Yeah. What are the forms of human trafficking? Yes? There's forced labor. There's sex trafficking, illicit removal of human organs, domestic servitude, child pornography, exploiting the prostitution of another person, transporting illegal item within and across borders, benefiting from the abuse of another person. Although not named in T&T laws, there is also forced marriage, child soldier, organ transplanting. So this is one of the elements of human trafficking, where what the investigator has to prove is that any one of these that took place, it was for the purpose of exploitation. That is the threshold. The threshold is for the purpose of exploitation. So whether you're harboring, whether you're transporting, whether you're partaking, that is once it's the exploit another human being, then that is the threshold that the court wants. Yeah.
So this is what Mr. Smith is like now, and he's now a guest of the state again, and hope he gets a good shave and start his journey as an incarcerated person from here on in. When we're going to take a break, and when we return, we speak to the digital case management system that you have coming up.
Yes.
And also, I want to talk about what do we do about men, because you men out there, and I want to sell out some of them to the wives too. Sometimes when they leave home and go to these brothels, do you know that you're facilitating human trafficking?
Yes.
Do you know that? Or do you care to know that you are facilitating human trafficking when you engage in purchasing commercial sex?
Yes.
Do you know that?
There's all kind of excuse to say, yes, these women come here for that, and it's a legitimate need that some men have, and all kind of excuses.
Legitimate need to exploit a human being.
Yes. That's how they excuse themselves of their folly.
It's sad. It's sad.
It is.
You're listening to Dependency. We're going to take a break. And when we return, for those of you just joining us, you're going to see the recapture of this individual's picture again. Stay right there. We'll be back.
The sex trafficking thing is a serious thing, boy.
Sex trafficking? I thought it was only human trafficking it have.
But what do you mean?
No serious thing, boy. Where you get that from? I don't know about human trafficking, not about sex trafficking.
So how can you spot and identify perpetrators and children who are victims of trafficking? Many victims who are children do not look like under 18 years old. Child victims often move escorted around alone or in small groups. They also live in shared and even packed rooms and have very little clothing and belongings. Child victims are often seen with adults who are not their parents, their relatives, or their caregivers. Migrant children are often unaccompanied and separated from their parents. Child victims are often engaged in work that is not suitable for children. They are often deprived of their freedom to go to school, to play, and to enjoy being a child. Perpetrators have unexplained sources of income and possessions. They are businessmen and businesswomen running legitimate and illegitimate businesses. Perpetrators may appear to be the victim's friend, boyfriend, close relative, or employer.
We are the Counter-Trafficking Unit of the Ministry of National Security, Trinidad and Tobago, safeguarding human life.
Parenting is a tough job, and often parents choose corporal punishment to discipline their children. Too often there are reports of physical abuse where parents have crossed the line. The aim of discipline is to educate children about behaviors that are acceptable. So consider the following. Speak with children about what is acceptable. Provide choices. Make rules appropriate to the child's age and stage of development. Firmly say no, or withdraw privileges for a short period of time. Remember, child abuse can be prevented. If you need support, call the Children's Authority hotline at 996. The Children's Authority, caring, supporting, protecting.
Eye on Dependency with Garth and Natasha.
Reality radio, at its best, where every life is a biography.
Sundays at 10 a.m. and exclusively on 95.5 FM.
And streamed live on the Eye on Dependency Facebook page and YouTube channel.
So the issue is, whilst the police welcome reports from members of the public as to information or location where children are abused or any reports involving children, we would also want to advise members of the public in given location, try to be as exact as possible, since the more important thing here is to get to the location in a timely manner to avert any further harm coming to the children. So the more information you can give us to the direction and not leave it up to the operator to expect to know exactly, because remember, she now has to relay the information to a vehicle. It will cut down the response time if you try to be as close as possible to the location.
Life would be like
and of
without
course,
a case management system. It would mean that you have to rely either on memory or paper or compile large files. And you have to think about the security of those files and that contains the information in relation to a case. Put it on a digital platform, and this is what you get. At the initial report, it generates a unique number in relation to that report. The next step would be, you'll have a process map. That process map will tell you what the next step. And the case management system will prompt you to go to the next step. So whether it is call the interpreter, the system will prompt you. And it will prompt you all the way down to final disposal before the court. So all of the stakeholders and so on, the system will prompt you that, okay, Children's Authority needs to be contacted in relation to this. We can create a field for Children's Authority to go in and acknowledge, and respond to us. So it's a data catchment really. So all the data pertaining to the work that we do is caught within the fields of that case management system.
Okay.
What that does at the end of the day is that it allows us to audit the progress of a case from inception to the final disposition. It allows us to generate reports. If it is the question is asked, if you ask the system, how many child victims you had for the past 4 years, you click and it tells you, yes. It could break it down into the case management system could be as good as your imagination is elastic.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So it will take away a lot of the guesswork. It will save us on generating these reports, and Counter Trafficking Unit has to generate reports on a quarterly basis, a yearly basis, and then that tips report. So imagine we have all of that on a digital platform. That will self-populate some of the fields for us. So it will create too a reservoir of all our data, and the Act requires us to keep data, to keep information, to do analysis. So rather than doing it by hand, we have a lot of case management system out in the ether that we can use, but we have now, with our help from international partners, they started building out one for us, and we are inputting our ideas into what we would like to have it look like.
Right.
Yeah? Okay. So that's where we are. I'm really excited by that aspect. That, in addition to which, we are outfitting. We have already outfitted a room in our new building for audiovisual recording. You can imagine speaking to a victim of trauma, and you're asking staccato questions and you're writing it down. No. If you put that person in a cognitive state and you speak with them and you ask them, tell us about the experience, that person eventually, the whole screen, everything out's down, and that person ends up in a conversation with the interviewer, and they go into a conversation and they're better able to memorize the event, and they're better able to give you an exposition on what happened.
Right.
So that is all part of the system, of the digital system, and we're hoping that to go live with that in the shortest possible time.
Deputy.
And just to add to what the director indicated, Trinidad and Tobago, the counter trafficking unit, we have such a great responsibility when it comes to reporting trafficking in persons. I mean, there's no other crime in Trinidad and Tobago we have a responsibility as a country to report on. We report to nobody about our robberies, we report to nobody about our murders, we report to nobody about our assaults. But we must report on trafficking in persons.
Right, okay.
So this is what brings about the importance of this digital management system. Because once this platform is developed, it would obviously make an easy reference in relation to this reporting responsibility. And of course, whoever we're reporting to would obviously see, we recognize that we obviously see the importance of ensuring that the mechanisms are in place for accurate reporting. Right? And so I think, I mean, one of the things I will say in meeting with the director upon our appointments, from the mountains he has spoken about this digital management system, and I'm supporting this wholeheartedly because I recognize the importance of it having operated in the unit as an investigator before and seeing how it would assist. And we must consider the implementation, the enactment of the AJIPA. And this too would assist our officers who operate in that space to have their things ready for the court. Because one of our matters will obviously fall in line with what the AJIPA is doing. And it would obviously augur well in all aspects of trafficking in persons, especially in the aspects of prosecution, which is crucial to the unit.
If you're just joining us, you're listening to Eye on Dependency, and those of you on Facebook and YouTube, we welcome you, our loyal followers. Remember, if you're new to the YouTube channel especially, please remember to like and subscribe to the channel, please, and help us to grow with you, and you will grow with us. And in studio, and of course, we live on the National Security TT Instagram page. And we spoke about drug use, and I see Alice put that up too as well, about drug use among, now, Shortman go to image C, and let's focus on this a bit, because we want you to know, sometimes, especially there are drugs that are used on victims, that when they wake up the next day, they don't know, they can't remember what happened. Ketamine is one of those drugs. Now, the Northern Division Task Force officers are continuing investigation into the seizure of $44,590 worth of ketamine at a courier company. In a statement yesterday, the TTPS said at 2:30 p.m. on Thursday, Northern Division Task Force police officers responded to information which suggested that a package carrying narcotics in transit in the Aranguez area. Upon arrival at a courier shipping company relative to a suspicious package received from the United States, police questioned the employees and a search was conducted. During the search, people allegedly found a yellow-colored packet containing 15 sachets of ginger tea. The sachets were further examined, and three were found to each contain a plastic bag with white crystal-like powdered substance. A field test was conducted on the substance, and a positive reading for ketamine was obtained. The 3 bags were weighed, and the amount of 63.7 grams, with an estimated street value of $44,000+. Now, Shortman, go to the video just to remind people what this ketamine drug would do to a human when they take it. It's a nasty drug, and I don't know how, again, some of these men have children who do this. Some of these mothers, they have children, but they will do that to your child without remorse. Okay? So, in the meantime, you keep sending your questions. I see we have, and we're going to open the lines, prepare your questions in a while. So if you have any questions, please feel free to call in and ask the director and the new director and deputy director of the Counter Trafficking Unit of Trinidad and Tobago. So I'm going to go to the video. D, please. Thank you. And just to remind people, and again to you recovering addicts out there, again, you know, there are reports of 1 or 2 friends of ours who relapsed. I understand. But remember, I keep saying to you, if you wake up the giant, you cannot put him back to sleep. This is why even some traffic victims would try to escape and go back to the perpetrator, you know.
Yes.
Because when that craving starts and they cannot fight it, they prefer to go back to that bondage so that they could get the drugs. And this is the trick that most people use. A lot of young ladies too getting caught up with that too, because man giving them weed to smoke and spiking the marijuana, and then the young lady becomes dependent on that person. So when your daughter leave home, you don't understand, sometime before she go to school, she has to go meet this person to take a hit before she go to school. You know? Speak to your children for me, please. Let's go to the video short, man. Thanks.
Acid. Its medical use was intended to replace PCP as an anesthetic for human patients. However, it produced too many adverse side effects and was later transitioned to animals for use as an anesthetic. This hasn't stopped young people from abusing it by injection or swallowing it or smoking it, and it was placed on the DEA's list of controlled substances in the 3rd category in 1999. Most people abuse it for its dissociative qualities, which makes him or her feel detached from self or the environment. This is often called the K-hole, or an out-of-body experience. Experiencing the K-hole requires a substantial dose, which simulates a near-death experience. At its most popular time in the 1980s, young people used it as a party drug, and 30 years later, not much has changed. In 2013, the Survey of Drug Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration reported that almost 500,000 young adults between the ages of 18 and 25 had used ketamine at least once in their lifetime. While ketamine addiction isn't a national epidemic like opioids, it does have habit-forming and addictive properties and should be regarded cautiously. Shortly after ketamine is ingested, one is plunged into an overwhelming feeling of calm, relaxation, and euphoria that is felt throughout the body. Hallucinations often make an appearance that outlast the anesthetic effects of the dose as well. This high lasts for about an hour and then gives way to more alarming side effects such as confusion, increased heart rate, a rise in blood pressure, and disorientation. Regular use of the drug often results in long-term damage such as kidney problems and thickened bladder walls, which prevent the passage of urine. But these aren't enough to dissuade many young people from abusing the drug. The pleasant short-term effects often overpower the concerns for the risk of the medically unsupervised use of ketamine to get high. Others use it to self-medicate psychological symptoms that get in the way of daily life, such as depression, anxiety, and thoughts of suicide, as ketamine takes effect shortly after ingestion. The tremendous relief of these symptoms is short-lived, prompting the individual to repeat or increase doses in shorter intervals. Just as one can build a tolerance to ketamine, one can develop an addiction. A ketamine addiction produces the following symptoms: physical abnormalities after the drug wears off, such as trembling, sweatiness, headaches, the loss of appetite, and strong cravings for more. Trying to stop using the drug is impossible, no matter how much the person wants to. Much time is spent thinking about the drug, how to get it, spending money on it, and the next opportunity for abuse. Interest is lost in previous priorities, goals, and obligations. Willingness to sacrifice important relationships, job, home, and even dignity is realized. Too much or too little sleep. Active ketamine addiction isn't a permanent condition. Recovering from addiction is not only possible, but it's within reach. After detoxing the body of the drug, substance abuse treatment should begin immediately. Although the physiological effects of the drug are overcome in detox, the psychological effects remain for several weeks. Substance abuse treatment facilitates an environment free of temptation for the recovering ketamine-addicted person. During this time, evidence-based therapies and other treatments are used to heal damaging thought patterns and relationships. It's not too late to get help.
Thank you very much. So that was a comprehensive take on ketamine, which is a very dangerous drug, as you've heard. And we want to congratulate again the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service for interrupting possible,
Being some victims.
Harm done to some people as a result of these drugs, which were concealed in something quite innocuous. Ginger tea.
Yeah.
Something that people take to alleviate certain symptoms, but and some people were asking whether the courier company may be charged, and I guess it's up to the investigating officers to say whether that would be the case, but the important fact is that those drugs are now off the street and out of the hands of potential perpetrators.
Thank you, Northern Division Task Force. Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, how is it CTU? Because we know we have a lot of survivors who will come to you addicted to substances. How are you all planning to treat with this? Because it's going to be really rough for them coming off of these drugs.
And this is why, of course, it's important for us to really maintain and have good stakeholder relationships. One of the first things Director and I really did was we had a stakeholder reception. That was on the 1st of February, and that was really for us to be introduced to who would be our stakeholders in this fight. One of our key stakeholders in relation to these situations would obviously be the medical fraternity under the MOH and the RHAs, and our victim and witness support unit at the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service, who obviously helps in terms of treating and assisting the persons who exhibit that measure of trauma and PTSD in relation to a traffic situation. I could speak from a place where in the past we have had a victim who was, during her trafficking situation, she was given cocaine. I think you remember her. It wasn't cocaine snorted, but it was not cocaine smoked, but snorted.
Yeah.
And I remember we brought you in as a stakeholder. So that's what I'm saying. So we brought you in as a stakeholder, and you had that conversation with her, and you were assisting her in her transition away from that measure of addiction. And again, so as the counter-trafficking unit, we would continue to work alongside our stakeholders to ensure that our victims are given the best possible situation in alleviating situations that might just be one that they were forced into measures of addiction while in a trafficking situation.
May I just add that our screening, we haven't gotten around to it yet, but certainly that screening form and the questions being asked, we are going to have to put that under a microscope to ensure that things like addiction and so on is captured within that screening. So where we recognize it, we can, reach out to that specific stakeholder who can assist us in that regard. I remember in Bermuda, it was a real culture shock for me. When you arrest a drug addict, you ask him, yes, when last you had a hit, yes? And he will tell you, because he knows that if it is, he's going to be incarcerated for any lengthy period of time.
Right.
He's going to go in withdrawal. So the screening, that is part of the screening. And if that person tell you, well, here what, I haven't had a hit for so long, then you take them down to the hospital, and the drug of choice there will mainly heroin, so methadone would be administered at the hospital, and it was normal,
Right.
So this is something we're going to have to start to look at, yes, because we can't expect that the ground to stay the same under us. We expect it to change, and with this indication that we have ketamine on the scene now, yes, certainly we'll have to think in terms of that, because the properties of that drug is such that it will facilitate, in a great way, trafficking in persons.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All kinds of assault.
Yes. Exactly, yes.
And you see, sorry, Natasha, but you see, if I know as a perpetrator that a victim cannot remember what happened and who they interacted with and what happened the night before, that would be my drug of choice, you know.
Certainly, yeah.
To administer to them.
Yeah. Yep.
So people out there, be careful, please. Please. You know, I don't know how to drive this point home enough, you know. You see addiction, I understand it, you know, and I'm telling you, it is not easy. It is a fight against the devil, you know, literally, you know. And that, no, let me just say this. Nobody who put drugs in the system, especially class A drugs like ketamine, crack cocaine, snorting cocaine or whatever, that giant stays with us till we die, you know. The thing is, you cannot wake him up. Anytime you wake him up, like if I wake up my giant, for the 34 years he was sleeping, I would have to feed him. I would not be able to put him back to sleep. And this is how it works. But the person has to want, it's a literal fight emotionally, so that, because we know that in times of pain and struggle, we go to that crutch. And if we don't get it, then it's a fight to stay away from it. But once we wake up the giant, we cannot put him back to sleep. All you're there, just remember that, please. So this way, sometimes that, you know, people go out and just trust anybody to buy drinks for them because you want to spend their money instead of yours. And the next day you wake up and then you can't remember where you were last night. Think about it.
And also a reminder to Trinidad and Tobago that we have a serious dearth of drug treatment facilities in this country. No fault of ours or the CTU, but bear that in mind when you are thinking about addiction, because that is going to be a serious challenge, I'm sure, for the CTU and for many other agencies who are looking for places for persons who have become addicted either through trafficking or other means to heal, because that is the drug treatment process is an important part of that recovery. And if you don't have access to those services, you're at the whim and fancy of, you know, your own determination to quit, right? And of course, we know that relapse is a part of recovery. So even if the individual relapses, there still needs to be that what to put it, safety net of drug treatment to go back to. And unfortunately, in many cases, people are either unable to afford to do that, or there simply is not a facility that can accommodate them. So just bear that in mind. We at Dependency have been advocating and will continue to advocate for more state-run facilities for drug treatment. But until then, we have to be mindful that drug treatment is a very important part of curbing the addiction problem that we have.
Right, so we're getting ready to take your call. Before we do that, though, I'm getting a message. So if you're dropping off and the stream not lasting on Facebook, for some of you, you could join our YouTube channel or go to the Instagram, National Security TT Instagram. I don't know, the Facebook feed gives problems at times, but the YouTube stays strong, so you can go to that part or go to National Security TT on Instagram.
Garth, if I may, no, you go ahead, continue your point.
Yes, directly, anything to add to that before we take some calls for you all, Deputy?
No, well, I would like to use this opportunity. Now, we have been newly minted Director and Deputy Director, and I'm really grateful for the opportunity to serve, especially at this level, in this capacity. And it would be remiss of me if I don't really thank that Ministry of National Security administration and the help that they are giving us in terms of building the capacity of this unit. So it's very, very important. I thank them. I thank the minister too, because he has been very, very supportive going forward. So I must put in that plug.
Yes. No, but you're right. So, I mean, and we are witness to that. So you're not making up anything there. We are witness to that. So National Security have been, from and I started. I remember Ver Lewis, who passed on the baton to Mr. Joseph, and now Miss Barrow. And you're right. The national security have taken this very seriously, and of course the minister too, Mr. Young, and now Minister Hines. They are at least trying, because with the setting up of the Trafficking in Persons task force as well.
Yes,
that speaks to how serious the ministry and the government of Trinidad and Tobago have taken this issue.
Right. So I hope that the TIPS reporters and they will take note. And in terms of the government responses, there's no. You cannot say now that the government is half-hearted in its response or anything like that. We are fully committed, whole of government, whole of civil society. Yes, so we are really making a concerted effort to address this frontally.
Yes.
Before we take calls, I have a kind of I don't want to say controversial question, but to address the involvement of law enforcement in the perpetration of these crimes. We have seen a lot of officers streaming before the courts for all kinds of matters, but in terms of human trafficking, it is at times, and not just human trafficking as well, other forms of trafficking is enabled in some circumstances by law enforcement. You speak to how the CTU is going to treat with that, as with any other.
Well, with a strong and intelligent law enforcement response. Because a lot of this is done in the dark. So you really require some good investigative acumen in order to tackle this. And we are going to build on our capacity in that regard. I say no more on that point.
Right.
All right.
Yes.
Root them out.
And yes, I know, listening to Claire Guy Allan, Season Superintendent Claire Guy Allan and Ms. Marshall here, I know these two women are not really playing with that.
I mean, my history in Trinidad and Tobago Police Service will tell all. I spent a significant amount of years operating under the Professional Standards Bureau and rooting out what would not be the best pick of the apples is what I do best. So, I mean, I would, of course, stay with my director and say, I say no more on this issue.
Right. Yeah. Yes, we understand. Right, so 6223937, if you have any questions or you just want to welcome the two directors, the director and deputy director of the Counter Trafficking Unit, please, in the meantime, deputy and director, speak to those who may be harboring traffickers. What message would you send to them today?
Or harboring victims? Or both?
I'm sorry, yes. Harboring,
or both,
yes, because remember now, a young lady could end up getting a great part of her life disturbed for harboring, and we'll see how that goes. But what would you say to people out there?
Examine your conscience, yes? This is a vulnerable person, and if you're harboring them, then it is assumed that you know the trauma that this person is going through on a daily basis. And if you can have that person in a house, in a room, or somewhere, and you can look at that person knowing full well that come the dark, she is going out to serve clients and so on, and when they're done, they bring her back to you for you to take care of them. How do you feel? Yes, this is a human being. Yeah, this is a plural society. Yes, Kat, and the greater part of the plurality. The people who came have been trafficked here. So when you look at it from that historical perspective, and here I am, history has placed us, the deputy director and I, at the forefront of it. I have an obligation, I have a duty, I have a responsibility to make sure I give my best effort. And likewise, other persons in Trinidad and Tobago, you're harboring a victim of, and you are actively participating, you're perpetrating. And the law is designed to punish that. Yes, because that is one of the aspects of trafficking in persons, harboring a person, knowing that that they are to be exploited. So the persons who are harboring, come on, make a call.
Yeah, and I could probably add to that. We have had situations where persons would say to us when in conduct of investigations, listen, they brought them people here by me to spend the night, and I just didn't feel good about it. So you know what I did? I left the door open. you know. Yeah, so they were able to obviously escape and that happened in the life of the counter trafficking unit. So a lot of persons, and this is our awareness to you, when that situation occurs, you need to contact us and let us know, because persons, just the mere fact of somebody saying to you, I just need you to house 2 girls to me over a 2-day period, you might find yourself before the court for harboring. As the director rightfully says, it forms part of what would be the act in relation to trafficking in persons. You don't have to be involved in the exploitative part. Once the individual itself was exploited within the process, you would have harbored, and you would now have to face the court in relation to a trafficking in person situation.
All right, I have 2 more questions to ask before we go. Let's take a couple calls. Hello, good morning.
Blessed good morning to you, Gat, Natasha, the listeners, and to your guests.
Good morning, ma'am.
When it is, people do all these things, and they still want to come out and say, well, okay, then it is the government give us the permission in order to plant the weed. Is it a good thing or is it a bad thing? And some people is overusing it, and they could take the smoke and walk on the street and be freely. God, I wanted just a small thing. I was coming home Ash Wednesday from Arima. That was about after 12 going to evening time. So the driver picked up a gentleman, and he talking and trying to get him to. He said, oh my goodness, I now come home and I meet up them outsiders, and they took me home to them. It was how much of them? God, and he now going home, God. When it is people do these things, and whenever anything happen to them, God, is the government responsibility? When they go in the hospital, they go in the health center, is the government responsibility? What again? How much again? How they can talk? What we can do in order to assist the law-abiding good people? Thank you very much, and have a blessed and wonderful day.
Okay, ma'am.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for your observation. Hello, good morning.
Good morning to you, Garth and Natasha.
Morning, ma'am.
And good morning to the director, the new director, deputy director. Welcome to the Eye on Dependency. Now, my thing is, I want to congratulate you all that you are real true patriots. You're going out there to do the best you can do. Now, my thing is, with this trafficking in persons and drugs and sex trafficking and all these things, the people who are behind it want to build big empires, live the good life, have how many houses and cars and boats and so on and so forth on the backs of these people who get nothing. And that is why people compare it to slavery. Same thing they did with slavery. The plantation owners had wealth, generational wealth, on the backs of the slaves. The slaves got nothing. And when you build these empires and you want to maintain your turf, that is where the crime, the blood crimes, come in to play. Because by any means necessary, you'll want to maintain your turf. And you'll take anybody out who wants to interrupt that. So all who just see it as white-collar crime and just a slap on the wrist and so, it leads to the blood crimes because they want to maintain their empires. Thank you, guys, and blessings and all the best in your duties. Thank you.
Thank you very much. 6223937. So, Creative Genius, hello. You can go to our Facebook page and leave a message, and you can leave a message for us, and we will get in touch with you there.
Oh, and for those of you tuning in on Facebook and or YouTube, all you like the live now, please. I'm only seeing 16 likes, and we have 62 people on Facebook and 117 on YouTube and only 7 likes. Come on, could we get those likes up, please? Thank you.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning.
Yes, good morning, Garth and Natasha.
Morning.
And there. I would like to find out what I noticed. I noticed like when people use either cocaine, what does cause them to be walking stiff?
Say that again? What?
Like when people use like marijuana and cocaine, I don't know what has caused them to be walking stiff.
Stiff?
Yeah.
Okay. I
that's a physiological response to the drug, and it affects
varies.
different people different ways, yeah?
Yes.
And depending on the drug too, so that's just a manifestation of the effect of the drug on the system.
And it depends on the quality of the drug too, and what kind of drug that they took. Hello, good morning.
Gentlemen, it's a very interesting program.
And ladies.
But one lady as well, my humble apologies as a senior citizen. But it is important that we look at the wider vernacular, and as opposed to the narrowing of the barrel of the gun, or barrel, so to speak, forget the gun aspect, in terms of evaluating and coming to information that is considered an informed decision for recommendations. One of the problems society is facing by way of incompetencies within the public service is individuals who are suitably qualified for assistance that is public assistance and are being chased around the mulberry bush in very sarcastic and dehumanizing manners as though they are beggars. There are several people I know for a fact who, by way of their qualified for government assistance, yet they have been waiting for over a year, and in some cases 2 to 3 years, just keep being run around by public servants because of gaff made within the confines of the operatives.
All right. Folks, in studio we have the director of the counter-trafficking unit and the deputy director of the counter-trafficking unit. If you're just joining us, you're listening to Dependency. And we are speaking human trafficking this morning, how we can prevent it, how we can identify it, how we can stop it and spot it. All right? So any other issue, we have other agencies to deal with those issues. Of course, what you just mentioned, the director and deputy director cannot speak to that. All right? Hello, good morning.
Yes, good morning. I heard you say that, they have trafficking in organs, human organs. So does that mean that we have people in the medical profession involved in this?
Director, the director mentioned. Yeah. Go ahead, director.
No, you don't need a medical doctor. People and they who perform that, they will know where to cut and what to cut, and you have they administer a young person some ketamine, and they take out a kidney, put it on ice, and they ship it out.
So what you mean, any old body could go and take out a kidney?
Well, you'll have to know what you're doing, and the people and they involved in that, they know what they're doing.
But you don't have to be a medical professional, trained medical professional to do that.
And I just want to add that we have not had any cases in Trinidad.
Thus far.
Well, so far.
Thus far.
Yeah.
But it is a practice in other countries.
It is a significant practice.
But everything on YouTube now, you could go and get a YouTube tutorial to take out a kidney.
I was not going to say that, but I didn't want to say it out here with God. I thought we shouldn't say that, I think
rest assured, it's
morning, God.
Not happening here.
Morning. Yet. Welcome to Dependency.
Morning, God. Morning, Natasha. Morning to the two directors.
Morning.
Continue all good work. I think we caught one. The fugitive was on the run. He was caught after about 4 to 5 months.
Yes. Shortman, put back up his picture, please, so that people can see who just joining us.
Right.
Go ahead.
Work. Gary, morning. You see, whatever you see human trafficking, does it have a statute behind those laws of human trafficking?
No, sir.
Sorry?
No statute behind.
Right, so I don't play games. We could start in Parliament, right, with an investigation on that, right? And it is a well-oiled organization within the central and south peninsula of Trinidad and Tobago, all over Trinidad, but it's a well-oiled machine in those demographics. And if we could start doing some undercover work there and start fishing it out, because as my boy said, we would not have been here if our fathers weren't kidnapped and brought here. So we could start in Parliament, and people, the so-called good citizens that Sparrow spoke about, the shirts and tie and stuff and things like that, businessmen who hiding under the cover of that, we could start there as well too. So good morning, listening. Good program.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
622-3937.
Good morning.
Good morning to the panel and the directors here. It's a very good program.
Thank you,
my concern is, why is it the Venezuelan is now migrating to Trinidad in that amount of people coming to Trinidad. And what is it called? That they had, from 1928, Simon Bolivar Revolution, there was a type coming to Trinidad. And after that, now you see this drove of Venezuela coming to Trinidad. What is causing that? Could you give a
I think that has been well documented, sir. There is political and economic unrest happening in Venezuela. It has been for the past few years, and that is driving migration of Venezuelan nationals, not just to Trinidad and Tobago, but across the Caribbean and Latin America.
That's right.
But it's part of a worldwide issue, you know, because they are North Africans and so on, taking that perilous crossing to get to Europe. And so there are migrant communities all over the world. And that is a fact of life.
Yeah, right now America experiencing a surge.
Yes, on the border, the southern border.
Yes. Yeah. And I mean, even this president started talking about wall too. When they frowned upon it in the last administration, but this time they really see a need for this wall. You know.
But remember, human beings are not trees, and they tend to move. We tend to move to different locations for different reasons.
So this is what, for those of you who've been asking, this is what Mr. Johnson looks like with the beard. He looked much younger without
Mr.
Smith. Sorry, saying Johnson. Mr. Smith.
Okay, Johnson.
We know it's me this morning. Hello, good morning.
Hi, good morning.
Good morning, ma'am.
A question. What is being done to bring awareness to the Spanish-speaking community, seeing that, for an example, this program right now is only in English, and they are among us, and they are also, some of them are victims of this trafficking in prisons. Thank you.
Right.
Thank you.
That voice sounds familiar.
Good morning, Araceli.
Yes, I know that. Yes. But Araceli, you know, we've done bilingual programs in the past.
We have.
And we will be doing a lot of that again this year. So
perhaps
invite them, because we've had a number of them asking a lot of questions, and we had to use Araceli self to
yes. Perhaps going forward, if there are to be more PSAs done, raising awareness about the aspects of human trafficking, we can do Spanish language versions of those PSAs and add that to the arsenal as well.
In addition to which, one of our first acts as director and deputy director was to engage the Venezuelan consulate, bring them on board and let them, you know, because they did highlight that there was a cultural difference between even when you're a victim. You may think you'll go to the grocery and get them certain food. Somebody explained to me that when they looked, they saw half the food eaten and half. It was a cultural thing, you know, because their diet and all these things are a bit different, yeah? So that is a consideration, and immediately we engage the Venezuelan consulate so that we can, you know, have a better engagement with the Venezuelan migrant community.
Right, 6223937. And now, what about hotline numbers now? If somebody wants to report suspected trafficking, or they have a suspicion something is going on, some of the numbers to share with us.
Just before that, I think we need to I don't know if you need to properly introduce our lovely lady in the corner, because I think she's the security detail.
She was trying to hide, but she can't.
Yes.
Yeah, people ask, you know, say, sure, go ahead, ma'am.
And yes, of course, this is Miss Annalise Singh, and she's from the Ministry of National Security Corporate Communications team, and has been working with the new directorate of the Counter Trafficking Unit, and has been doing a fantastic job. Operates as a security, yes, but no, she is actually our security in terms of our communications.
Yes.
So thank you so much, Annalise, and welcome.
Yes, and welcome to, and of course, not forgetting the entire team at National Security, led by Ms. Clarkson, and the great work that they continue to do as well. So we have several ways to contact the Counter Trafficking Unit Director.
Yes, definitely. Oh, Director.
No, go ahead.
Okay, yeah. So at the Counter Trafficking Unit, and one of the things that the Directorate, myself and the Director, we are really looking at is really bringing a platform in which the population could communicate with us.
Yes. Hold the call for a minute, folks. We're going to get... Okay.
Good morning, St. Clair.
Deputy, sorry.
Yeah, no problem.
Garrett, go ahead.
Good morning to your guests.
Go ahead, caller, quickly.
Good program as well, God, for bringing the newly appointed Directorate of the Trafficking Department. God, as Ms. Carol and Neil just said, this human trafficking is a modern form of slavery. People are not being enslaved on the plantation anymore to plant cane, cocoa, and coffee. They're enslaved in this sort of business at the behest of so-called good citizens, as Sparrow said. So I hope that the unit is properly staffed with competent investigative officers, because, boy, we have to get to the root of this thing, and it ain't easy, but Ms. Marshall and the director seem to have a great head on their shoulders, so we wish them the best. So let's hope that they could put that in, because it is very degrading and inhuman. Good program once more. Safe trip home.
Thank you. Right. Holy call, the director was going to ask. Yeah.
Right, so the counter trafficking unit has this hotline, and that is 800-4288-800-4-CTU. You could also reach us via our email address, countertraffickingunit@gmail.com. And we are also on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, on the names of Counter Trafficking Unit TT. And I'm saying that any one of these platforms could be used as a mechanism to give reports. Quite recently, we've been having reports coming through Instagram, and we are thankful and thanking the wider community for trusting with us the information that you are bringing. It's important that we work in tandem with the population in relation to fighting this scourge. And of course, our partner of significant partner is the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service. You could use either one of their service, 999, 991, or 555, in relation to reporting if for some reason you're unable to get or reach the platforms mentioned before. So I mention again our hotline, 800-4288-800-4-CTU. We are at countertraffickingunit@gmail.com, and we are on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube under the handle Counter Trafficking Unit TT.
Okay. I'd just like to add that one of our immediate goals is to improve the catchment for reports of suspicion of harm. So while we have these platforms here, we're still working on others to see where we can get even more reports.
Right.
So, like for example, one of the short-term positions we want to fill is a interpreter of Spanish origin to work within the organization.
Okay.
So that in terms of answering calls, in terms of the day-to-day business, we can have that language barrier wouldn't be much of an issue.
Right. Wonderful. So, and remember, folks, if you're just joining us, you're late. But you can go back to our Facebook page as soon as we wrap up. You can go back and you can get the program from the beginning. Those of you who have questions that weren't answered, I'm sure Ms. Annalise will facilitate by visiting the page again, or even the CTU can visit the program again and answer some of your questions that you may have for the unit, or any question that didn't get answered. All right, so thank you all so much for, spending the morning with us. We thank the director and deputy director, and for being with us here this morning, spending a Sunday. You're going to be hearing from them a lot this coming Sundays. So because the unit and other stakeholders will be in studio here to guide you along. Because we want you, the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago, to take trafficking seriously. Don't wait till it happened to your child. And then you realize that this was serious. This is why we have these folks coming in to speak with you and create that awareness and keep it alive. It is a serious thing, and we need you to pay attention to it. Director, any closing remarks before we go?
I'd just like to thank the Ministry for the opportunity they have given me to lead the counter-trafficking charge. I will implore the members of the public to take this seriously and reach out to us. Let us rid ourselves of this modern day slavery. Yes? Especially when one thinks about the history of this country and the people who came, I think is everybody's business. So I would like to invite everybody on board, and they will have a good air in the Directorate of the Counter-Trafficking Unit.
Yes, Deputy?
For me, I would always want to thank and, of course, acknowledge the officers that operate within the counter-trafficking unit and the assistance that we get from the Special Investigations Unit of the Trans-Tobago Police Service and all our stakeholder partners. Of course, it would be amiss of me not to mention that we intend to have a workshop in the soonest, and that too would be able to develop our referral map. So good things, many things are going to be happening. We'll be coming and talking with Trinidad and Tobago and informing them of what is happening within the armpits of the counter-trafficking unit. And again, I wanted to thank you all for having us, and you all have a blessed Sunday and a fantastic week ahead.
Yeah, and we like to thank the CTU too as well, for having us here, and the Ministry of National Security for understand the importance to continue to share information and do drug demand reduction work, and of course create awareness with the ministry and the CTU and the relevant stakeholders to continue to bring these important programs to you.
Definitely.
Tasha?
Indeed. Again, just to thank the ministry, the CTU, for your continued support of Iron Dependency, and to know that we are here in support of the important work that you're doing, and this platform is always available to you for that purpose.
Yes. So once again, Director, Deputy Director, welcome aboard.
Thank you.
You are in charge of this vessel now.
Good
Take
luck
us
and Godspeed.
Godspeed. Farewell and following season, and we look forward to Trinidad and Tobago getting that good rating in the next TIC report under your watch, and more convictions under your watch.
As the Peregrinade would say, that I could spell leadership, and it's the leader of the ship in Allan Meiguel. Okay.
Thank you.
Yes. So Meiguel, again, thank you too for wanting to serve your country continually, and keep hold of the ship.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Keep hold of the reins, and you're going to do a great job. You're going to take us to where we need to get.
Thank you.
Right, so we'll be hearing more from you and the minister and other stakeholders going forward. So look out for that, folks. Once again, to those of you who joined us on Facebook and YouTube and Instagram, we thank you for your continued and loyal support. Thank you, and we hope you learned a lot today. All right, so take care. Thanks to Stormy Tom Gary, and we have major news up next with Mr. Kyle Saunders with the report. Take care, folks. Have a great day.
This Sunday from 3 p.m. at the Buko Complex, Buko Point. Come experience the most magnificent after carnival spectacle. The Steel Band, Calypso and Goat Race Festival. The fastest race goats in Tobago. Battle for supremacy.